What is going on, good people? Today we are going to be doing a mock draft. This time we're picking from the third position using the Fantasy Pros Draft Wizard tool. It's one of the best tools that I've come across in the fantasy football space. And the third position, this video is especially for you if you're drafting third, but I would argue this video is for anybody who's doing a fantasy football draft this weekend, next weekend, over Labor Day. And just real briefly about the third pick in the draft, I think it's a good spot. If you watch my video about having the number 2 pick in fantasy football, I struggled with that because I feel as though the consensus 2 picks are Jamar Chase and Bijan Robinson. So I did take Bijan Robinson, although I wanted to take a wide receiver at the number 2 pick just because in a PPR format, you can fall behind the 8 ball at wide receiver very easily. And this year, I like a lot of the wide receivers at the top of the draft. I feel less confident about the wide receivers in the middle rounds. But I like the third pick a little bit better because it gives you a little bit more flexibility. You can go running back if you want to. You can go Saquon. You could go Jahmyr Gibbs, or you could go, wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson. And then when you come back around, again, I like a lot of the running backs that are going in round 2 and round 3. So that makes me more likely to take a wide receiver in round 1. And then coming back around 2, I like some of the third round options at running back. I also like some of the options at wide receiver. You're looking at Devontae Adams, maybe a Mike Evans there in the third round. And then, if you get really lucky in the fourth round, maybe you grab Kenneth Walker, maybe George Kittle falls to you. Mike Evans, according to ESPN's rankings, is 42nd. So perhaps you get him in the fourth round, but I doubt it just based on the drafts that I've seen. Xavier Worthy, also a top option. And Breece Hall. Breece Hall in ESPN's rankings is way low, 50th overall. I have a hard time believing that they're actually going to use a running back by committee, but we will see, I suppose. But I feel like that's some uncertainty you could lean into because Breece Hall, especially from a pass catching perspective at running back, has been really good in his career. And then, in the 5th, 6th round, I'm looking at, Courtland Sutton, Travis Hunter, Calvin Ridley, Mark Andrews, Jalen Waddle are some targets that I'm going to be looking at later. RJ Harvey, I think, is really low according to ESPN's rankings. If you're drafting in ESPN, he's also fairly low in sleeper. He's 63rd there. Rome Odunze, 76th in ESPN, 80th ranked in sleeper, assuming you're doing a 1 quarterback league. And Tyrone Tracy, also 87th in both ESPN and sleeper. And then, way late, some sleepers like Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, Emeka Egbuka. Some of these rookies later could pay big dividends. Jaden Higgins. So we're just going to get into the third pick. I think it's a really good spot to draft from. So we'll just go ahead and start the mock draft. And again, if you like this content, click the like button. Click the subscribe button if you want more content like this. We're going to be doing mock drafts and fantasy football content all the way up to your fantasy football drafts and throughout the NFL season to keep you on top of your game. So without further ado, let's get into the mock draft. So here we are yet again, the mock draft simulator. Again, I love using this tool. You can do mock drafts in minutes. We're going to take a little bit longer today just because I'm going to talk through some of my picks. We are going to be drafting from an ESPN league, a PPR 2025, 12-team snake draft from the third position, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. I feel like that's pretty standard, although we could bump this down to 2 wide receivers, and that would minimize the importance of the wide receiver position in PPR. A lot of people do play with 2 wide receiver spots. We could do that. Let me know what you think in the comments. We're going to be drafting against the Fantasy Pros experts. We're going to be using ESPN's pre-draft rankings because I feel like most people use ESPN or Yahoo. Just depends. Maybe you use CBS, Sleeper. Those are some of the most popular platforms. We're just going to keep everything normal, quarterback normal, everything normal, no kicker, no defense. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be drafting against the Fantasy Pros experts. let's start the draft. And my guess is that Jamar Chase and Bijan are going to be off the board, and they are. So that was fairly predictable. And, again, you have a lot of flexibility with the third pick. You could go CeeDee Lamb. You could go Justin Jefferson. You could go Jahmyr Gibbs or Saquon. I think those are the four pockets. Four pockets. Those are the four pack of players that you're looking at the number 3 pick. And I'm just going to go CeeDee Lamb. I think that is what I would do at the third pick, because I think the Cowboys are a team that's built to throw the football in 2025. Their offensive line wasn't good, but it was better, a lot better. I think it ranked top 10 towards the end of last season, throwing the football, pass protecting. So you look at their weapons. They bring in George Pickens. They add Javonte Williams to their backfield. They don't really have, barring a trade, they don't really have right now a bell cow running back outside of Javonte Williams. And Javonte Williams, what does he do well? He's a pass catcher. He ranked number 5 in targets amongst running backs last year. So all that to say, I think the Cowboys defense is not going to be good. We know they play in that dome. I think that this is a team that is going to throw the football and throw the football a lot. So we are back up here at the 210. And I really like Chase Brown this year. I would feel a lot more comfortable taking him in round 3. Maybe that's just me. I just need to, get over the apprehension that I have drafting him in round 2, because he has a ton of upside in that Cincinnati Bengals offense. T. Higgins, Jackson Smith and Jigba, they feel very, very rich taking them in round 2. So I don't think that's the direction I'm going to go. Kyron also is another option that I really like in round 3. So I feel like at this particular pick, we could go in several different directions. Trey McBride also feels like it's a little bit rich, but it's basically for me between Trey McBride, Chase Brown. Maybe we think about Josh Jacobs or Bucky Irving and see what comes back to us. But I'm fine potentially pushing tight end, and I'm also fine with Chase Brown in this range, because the more I think about Chase Brown, the more I think that the Bengals offense is going to be a lot like it was last year. And especially considering they're shopping Trey Hendrickson because they can't figure out a contract. I mean, that organization's weird with their players and their contracts. So the defense is not going to be very good. They're going to have to throw the football. Chase Brown has a ton of upside. I think he could be a dark horse candidate to actually finish as the RB1 overall. So if I'm going to have that much conviction behind a player, I shouldn't be afraid to take them in the late second round. So it's going to be Chase Brown. So we're going to go wide receiver, running back, and we do see a bunch of running backs come off the board. As my voice keeps cracking throughout this video, I'm not sure what to do about that. I'm just going to keep going and hope that I don't look like a complete fool throughout this video. So it's interesting. We have Jackson Smith and Jigba and T. Higgins that did come back to us in the 3rd round. I don't necessarily hate taking either one of them in the 3rd round. I would probably prefer T. Higgins. We do have Devonta Smith and Mike Evans as well. Those are probably the 4 players I'm looking at, considering we took a running back, in Chase Brown. And I like to build my teams around wide receivers. So again, for me, you could talk me into T. Higgins or Mike Evans. I think it would probably be between those 2 guys. And man, I mean, we could lean just really heavily into the Cincinnati passing game, but I think for my money, I prefer Mike Evans, and I keep drafting Mike Evans in round 3. Let me know what you think of that in the comments. So T. Higgins, Kyron Williams, JSN, all the players that we were considering taking do come off the board basically right after we took Mike Evans. So our start here, CeeDee Lamb, Chase Brown, Mike Evans, feel pretty solid about that, feel pretty good. Now we have a decision to make. We have, we could go in either direction, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, Devonta Smith, And then we have some running backs here also: James Cook, James Conner, Chuba Hubbard. Honestly, a lot of those options don't inspire much confidence. There's a safe pick in there. We could go with an elite quarterback in Joe Burrow. Um, we're just last night, Caleb Williams looked really good in his preseason game. So perhaps DJ Moore does present us some value. That's who the fantasy pros would have us prefer. They would prefer us taking DJ Moore according to their pick predictor. This is a tough one. I wonder about James Cook. I wonder if his value hasn't really come back to what it should be, considering that he did sign a contract. But with James Cook, I just can't get past the touchdown regression that is likely coming for him. And I just can't do it. I'm fine with going in a different direction if we need to, other than running back. Man, if these are our options, I am very torn, and I may just lean going with DJ Moore in round 5. And I'm just going to scroll real quick to make sure that I'm not missing anything. And I do think, I think DJ Moore presents some value here. So we're gonna go with DJ Moore, and we're gonna lean into this Bears offense. And good. Now I feel a lot better. I think James Conner's a really good pick here in round 5. So getting our RB2, although I'm not necessarily in a rush to fill our RB2 spot. I just don't really love a lot of the wide receivers in this range. DK Metcalf, I'm just not a huge fan of Metcalf this year in that offense. I know the target share is probably going to be there for him, but I wonder how good the target quality is going to be with Aaron Rodgers, and that offensive line is not very good. And I do wonder about the fit with Arthur Smith. And like, I just, for a guy that likes to do a lot of play action, Aaron Rodgers has historically throughout his career has not been a quarterback that does a lot of play action. So I think James Conner is going to be my pick. I know it's kind of boring. So right after we took James Conner, James Cook does come off the board, followed by a bunch of wide receivers. Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice in round 5. That could have been a consideration for us as well in round 5. I'm not opposed to it. I think that's exactly where he should go, and he's probably going to miss 3 to 4 games, but we know he's going to play the first 4 games. So we have a couple tight ends. Rome Odunze comes off the board right before we can take him. And I was in this spot at the number 2 pick as well in the last video, where I just am not really inspired by too many of the options here in round 6, especially at the current value. David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift is somebody that I'm not drafting a lot of. I was drafting more of them, and I made a video about this months ago. And this is the tricky thing about doing fantasy football content, is when the landscape changes, your opinion can change, but it looks like you're flip-flopping on the issue. DeAndre Swift, at least from what I remember, was going in round 7, round 8 in drafts earlier in the offseason. And now, according to ESPN, he's a 5th round pick. And even in the 6th round, I'm just not there with DeAndre Swift. I know he's probably going to get a ton of volume, especially in the passing game in that Bears offense. But there's a lot of, cliche alert, mouths to feed in that offense in the passing game. The offensive line is improved, but I don't know if DeAndre Swift has the best vision. So I'm honestly tempted to go running back here. Pacheco is somebody that I would be interested in taking. Ricky Pearsall as well. If we look at what these 2 players have here, Derek Brown and DJ Jazzy Jefferson, very good, although he didn't take Justin Jefferson. I don't know if that helps us that much, because they could go in either direction, any direction they want to go. So I think since there's running backs all on there, Aaron Jones, I wouldn't mind having either. Let's go with Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall is somebody I keep taking in these drafts. And look at that. We made the right bet. Khalil Shakir, Chris Godwin, Sam Laporta, Bo Nix come off the board. And we are going to get our Isaiah Pacheco in round 7. That feels really nice. So we go Ricky Pearsall, Isaiah Pacheco, and I feel like we have 4 just solid wide receivers and 3 solid running backs. I'd feel very happy. I don't know what it is. It just and I'm just now realizing that Bijan went 101 in this draft. That's kind of wild. And I'm just now realizing that I feel so much better about my teams when I go wide receiver first, and getting an elite wide receiver like CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson or Malik Neighbors, even at the back half of the draft. If you start your draft with Brian Thomas Jr. or Drake London, I just feel like the running backs, like you can find running backs in, the 7th, 8th round, even the dead zone, the quote unquote dead zone, that I think are going to be valuable because they've been pushed down. The running backs that would have normally gone in rounds 1, 2, and 3 over the past several seasons have gotten pushed down to the quote unquote dead zone. Like running backs like James Conner 10 years ago, 15 years ago would have been round 1 or round 2 picks. Heck, even maybe 5 years ago. I don't know. Maybe that's crazy to say, but we are back up on the clock here. The rumors of Brian Robinson Jr. getting traded, I don't know quite what to make of them, because that either tells me that, well, I suppose the report could be complete BS, but it also tells me that maybe if it's true, I don't really see another running back on that team that can do what Brian Robinson does for that team, that can be a in between the tackles grinder, a goal line back. I get it. It's a Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. I mean, it's great for him if it's true. But if you really look at Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt at 5'11", 205, 206 pounds, depending on where you look, as opposed to a Brian Robinson Jr., who's a bigger running back, I don't know if he does what Brian Robinson can do. I mean, Brian Robinson is 6'1", 220 plus. And I just find those rumors interesting. And that's what they are right now, rumors. And of course, what'll probably happen is I will shoot this entire video and then Brian Robinson will get traded. But I do think he's an extreme value here in round 8. And that's honestly the direction I'm leaning. And I'm looking to get Mark Andrews on the way back, because these 2 players already have their tight end. They have Trey McBride. Derek Brown has Trey McBride and Sam Laporta. So I 4 wide receivers, 4 running backs. I'm not afraid to start like that. So let's go Brian Robinson. And as I predicted, neither one of these guys took a tight end. So I think Mark Andrews in round 9, if he falls to round 10 especially, he's just a smash pick this year. He'd be one of my biggest bets for a tight end to score double-digit touchdowns. I know that there's touchdown regression could be coming, but I think he's going to get a lot more targets this year than he did last year. You remember the car wreck at the beginning of last year, I think really slowed him down, and I think he's going to be completely healthy at the start of the season. There are a few offenses that I like more than the Baltimore Ravens offense. I know it's an offense that's going to run the ball a lot, but it's also an offense that's going to be in the red zone a lot, and their primary red zone target, I would argue, is Mark Andrews. So we get our tight end. I don't know what it is, but I feel like I do a lot of these very symmetrical 4 wide receivers, 4 running backs, these very symmetrical starts here, and a tight end. We do not have a quarterback yet. So a lot of running backs, a lot of wide receivers did come off the board here. So we could take our quarterback. I'm looking, but there is a wide receiver. There's a couple wide receivers that I like here on the board. Rashid Shaheed, I think, is better in best ball. He's the best wide receiver on the board right now. Let me look at the running backs. Scatabo is interesting. I think Bashul Tutin is interesting in round 10 as well. Those would be the running backs, probably. I mean, and then we're getting into handcuffs. Braylon Allen has definitely shot up in Dynasty and in redraft, I feel like, over the last couple weeks. Trey Benson, Jaden Blue has a lot of upside. Those are all guys that I would for sure be in on, but I think Scatabo and Tutin stand out as players that I would prefer. And then I think we will go running back because, Wandale Robinson and Jaden Higgins would be the wide receivers, and even a Kyle Williams or a Demario Douglas I like to as well. Shaheed, as I said, I just think he's a better and best ball pick. I just don't know if you're ever going to quite know when to start him, because if you think about what the Saints were doing last year, different offensive coordinator, a lot of deep play designs for Rashid Shaheed, and we saw a very short sample size. And yes, he was outproducing Chris Olave. And I also don't like Chris Olave either. I just don't want much to do with the Saints offense because I think it's just going to be dreadful. I think that they're a candidate to have the number one pick overall next year because their quarterback situation is that bad. And we know that this league is run by the quarterbacks. So I think I am going to go with Scatabo. I think in round 10, even though he's dealing with an injury, I think it's worth the pick here. If anything happens to Tyrone Tracy, you would think Scatabo would be the guy. So we're going to go with Cam Scatabo. And we picked the right position because 3 running backs came off the board there. Tutin came off the very next pick, and maybe we should have gone Tutin. That in hindsight, maybe that's what we should have done. He has a lot more juice, I think. So instant regrets there. But I do think with this next pick, I'm going to go with Wandale Robinson in a PPR league because he ranked number 10 in targets amongst wide receivers. It might seem boring, but he's going to play the slot. He's going to get targeted, and he's a lot more valuable in a PPR league than a half PPR league. I will admit that, but I think he's going to be one of these usable pieces for us that we're going to be able to plug into our flex. And as our wide receiver 5, I'm totally fine with it. And now I think either with this pick or our next pick, Kyler Murray is staring us in the face. I think we can wait till our next pick to go with quarterback. So I think that this is the range where we should target a quarterback. I think Kyle Williams has a real chance to break out, and that would be the high upside pick. I'm not really seeing much. Marshawn Lloyd, I think, would be a good handcuff. Same with Will Shipley at wide receiver. I think Kyle Williams could get on the field right away, although Demario Douglas, maybe he has the inside track, especially in the slot. And in a PPR league, you know what? I'm talking myself into Demario Douglas. So we do have another quarterback coming off the board, but it's not the quarterback that we necessarily want. And I do think quarterback is the clear pick here. And I'm torn between Kyler Murray and Drake May. I think I'm just going to get my guy, Drake May, because I do believe that he's the one quarterback that I think could vault himself into the elite quarterbacks this year because every single facet of the team has been improved. If you look at the weapons, the coaching staff, the offensive line, and then you hear him talking about how he wants to run near the goal line, whatever works. I mean, there were no design run plays for him last year, which is egregious. The coaching last year was absolutely a dumpster fire. I mean, the whole team was a dumpster fire, which is why they were picking near the top of the draft and why they fired their coach. So Drake May, to me, is that guy that I want late in drafts. And he's the reason why I'm willing to wait on quarterback this year, because I feel like he's going to give me that kind of rushing upside. And I just don't know if your league mates are going to be privy to it. I just don't know. I don't think that they're going to be. He's my secret weapon at the quarterback spot. And now I think, we have a couple. I think these 2 wide receivers are going to be extremely useful on our team. Not flashy, but I think very effective. So I think that at this stage in the draft, in most drafts, I look to handcuff running backs, but there is a wide receiver on the board that I just keep taking in every draft, and that would be Jalen Coker. I think Jalen Coker has a real chance to be super useful for the Carolina Panthers this year. I think he's a better player than Xavier Legette, and I think that the Panthers are going to wake up and realize that. So Jarquez Hunter, Woody Marks do come off the board, and Woody Marks was a consideration for us at the 14-10 pick. But now I think we should probably turn our attention to running back. And a running back that I really like is Keaton Mitchell. He has a ton of upside in that Baltimore offense. I think he's going to be completely healthy this year. He's just so explosive, and I think he's the perfect complement, him and Justice Hill, but I think Keaton Mitchell's younger and more explosive. Just a really nice complement to what Derrick Henry can do, and I think he does have some standalone value. Now, we took Drake May, and because we took a quarterback late, and because I want to make a point in this mock draft, a quarterback that I'm going to be stashing on all my teams, and he was in my sleepers video. Go check it out. 13 sleepers that are being disrespected in fantasy drafts. Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, and I should probably check to see, because if Drake May's bye week, when is the Colts bye week? Because if we're taking two quarterbacks, we want their bye weeks to be different. So the Colts bye week is week 11. Let me see where the Patriots bye week is. This makes for great YouTube. And week 14 for the Patriots. So Anthony Richardson. And the reason why I'm willing to make this risk is, one, it's the 16th round. And I think according to most ADP lists that you see out there, Anthony Richardson is a 14th, a 15th round pick, somewhere in that range. So if that's what we're getting, if that's the range we need to take him, I'm totally fine taking Anthony Richardson as a second quarterback. So we get a B+. Honestly, I feel better about this one than the second draft, or the pick 2 draft that we did. So let's go into the full analysis here and see what these guys are thinking. So it says we're going to finish 4th, which I'm fine with. I mean, that's the playoffs in most leagues. Quarterback, it's never going to like my quarterback, because I'm probably, I'm pushing quarterback and tight end. Our starters are 5th. Running backs are our weakest spot, but our wide receivers are good. Flex is good. So let's go into the expert opinions. Alfredo Brown really liked our team. Joe Arico really liked our team. And there are several people here that also didn't like our team. Although nobody really hates it. I mean, this guy from IDP Plus, C-. Steals and reaches. I think this is a steal. For Drake May, so it says I picked him 147. He's ranked 101. So no other real steals or reaches here. Pick analysis. We can do this. This is a section where we can redo some picks, but I never really do that to get like a perfect score. So the team strengths we've already covered. So let's recap this draft. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. Like, subscribe if you liked it and you want more of it. Let's recap the team, and we will get out of here. CeeDee Lamb, Chase Brown, Mike Evans, DJ Moore, James Conner, Ricky Pearsall, Isaiah Pacheco, Brian Robinson Jr., Mark Andrews, Cam Scadabo, Wan'Dale Robinson, Demario Douglas, Drake May, Jalen Coker, Keaton Mitchell, and Anthony Richardson. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to, again, click like, subscribe to the channel if you liked it and want more of it. And until next time, be good, everybody, and we will see you later.